General Protocol Spaces, banking on freedom.
So this is welcome to General Bull 33 of N. We don't have anything really particular to talk about, but we're always working very hard on a lot of different things. So I figure we're just going to end up talking about what we've been working on. This might get very technical because a lot of the stuff we do is coding, but then there's of course other things we do. There's the chip stuff going on. There's Jason working in the background like crazy. There's a lot of different things going on, our plans for the future and so forth. So we'll just see where the conversation goes. And if anybody wants to come up on stage, put your hand up, please. And this is more or less open mic for people who aren't ridiculous. So welcome to come up and have a chat with us. So I think I made Jonathan promise to start talking here. So what are you up to, Jonathan? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm working on my Electrum library and having some issues getting everything to work in various environments. That's where I am, like on a technical part right now. You wouldn't imagine how hard it is to find something as simple as a key value store that just works and works everywhere. But apparently, this is a unsolved problem in the Node ecosystem.
Wait, this key thing you're working on is for Electrum, for your Electrum library?
Yeah, I want to
Oh, it's for
implement
caching everything, all the local like validations.
opportunistic caching in the background. And so
Right.
I want to have some kind of persistent key value store that's available regardless of if you run it in the browser or in the background. And I found like three maybe acceptable or workable solutions at least, but none that I really, really like. And it's kind of hard to Google and find things. Key
So
value is a pretty generic term.
So for the people who are listening, this thing that Jonathan is working on or has been working on for years is the Electrum Cache library. And this is the thing that lets your application or wallet or whatever it is talk to the Bitcoin Cash network without having to be like a super expert at what's going on. So it's just gotten better over the years and making it easier and have types, and it's easier to work with. And the current upgrade that Jonathan has been working on is to make it even easier and to do what he's talking about here, where it caches, where it remembers things that it's already done. And so then it makes it like super efficient and you don't have to go back and do things on the network. So this is really important if you want to have apps that are really snappy and because anything where you're going and trying to check for information from a node or anything on a network takes a lot of time and it makes things slow and unresponsive. So this kind of stuff is the kind of thing that would globally make all kinds of apps more responsive and faster. So it's a nice thing he's working on.
Yeah, it's absolutely something I'd like to have, and we re-implemented these kind of features across multiple applications already, so they really belong like at the library level. So I'd argue that the strongest benefit they come with is the fact that the developer cost of making something new goes down because you don't have to do this re-implementation.
Right, because this isn't only to make it faster when you're checking for things, but this is doing the background stuff of being aware of what's going
Yeah,
on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain so that you don't have to be checking that stuff all the time. Yeah, that's right.
yeah. I mean, like, let me just give you a summary of the library because people might not have all the context. So I made an Electrum Cache library some year back that is agnostic to what is being sent back and forth and just lets you connect and talk with an Electrum server. And my goal with that was to make it kind of robust and reliant. So I made a clustering feature on it, and I made a bunch of automatic error handling and reconnection stuff so that you could just, set and forget. You want to talk with an Electrum server, pull in this library, choose a server, and now you can talk with the server whenever it's available. But it turns out that the clustering part does not work well under all use cases. Like, it needs to be handled differently when you're broadcasting some data compared to when you're looking up some data. Some data is immutable, some data is not. And so if you get different data from different servers, you have to reconcile that. And it worked for most parts, but there were some parts where it just couldn't do. And so I decided at some point that, hey, I'm going to need to leave this agnostic part like in the past and make a layer on top of it that is context aware and understands what kind of data is being sent back and forth so that it can make intelligent choices about how to handle that data. And so I started typing up all the different things you can do with the Electrum protocol and added like full TypeScript typing and wrapper classes or wrapper functions so they could more easily work with that data instead of having to retype the data in your own application every time because the old library didn't know what the types were. And then I started building another layer on top of that, using those in order to be able to do SPV validation transparently in the background. So I made a library that connects with the node, and after it has done the negotiation about versions and whatnot, it starts listening for headers, starts downloading old headers, and starts validating the chain of headers so that if you ask for a transaction, it can tell you like, here's the transaction, here's when I first saw it, and now I have achieved a Merkle proof, and so I know that it exists within this chain of transactions that I've stored. The same way that the Electrum Cash wallet already does, but I wanted to make it easy for people to add that to their own applications, not just wallets. So it'd be useful even for like services and other things that are running in the background. And I've gotten to the point now where it can do most of that. It does track the headers, it does do some validation. It doesn't do all the validation yet, I have some validation left still to do. And it keeps connections with multiple servers, and it knows when to query them in parallel and when to make sure to validate the data it gets back properly. But I wanted to make sure that we cache the data. So like all the data that is immutable, I want to store somewhere so that if you make a wallet, it doesn't take ages to start up and resync all the data. It just remembers all the stuff. And that's kind of where I am right now. I'm trying to find a in-process key value store that is persistent regardless of environment. So yeah, that's my current work on that part.
And just at a much higher level, this is an important thing, right? Because it's a famous thing that you can work with an API, like you can make a wallet and it's super fast, and it's really what it's doing is not even talking to the blockchain or doing any of that. All it's doing is talking to some centralized service somewhere that's hopefully doing the right thing. And a lot of wallets do it that way. They don't actually do anything. They can't verify anything themselves. They're just talking to some central service run by the company that makes the wallet. So having these things where your own local wallet can be checking everything on its own is really important. And not only checking it on its own, but doing that quickly. Because in the past, there were some wallets that would, and I think Monero wallets are still like this, or the last time I used one, it was still like this. They have to check everything on their own, but they're slow, like really slow. And that's not good either, right? That's the reason people use these. One of the reasons people use these centralized wallet service type architectures. So yeah, it's important to have everything be secure, where it's actually validating everything, but also fast and smart and not being slow and giving you a bad user experience. So this is important stuff for the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it was Josh Elator that where first heard this from, but that most of the wallets and almost all of the services out there are not actually like SPV or light wallets; they're just RPC wallets.
So even the wallets that you think are non-custodial are kind of custodial. Like you're still trusting them.
Well, not really. There are different layers of that, but that's a whole ass article.
You're trusting them not to lie to you, basically, which is the nice thing about SPV.
But you're also trusting them to keep operating, and this is kind of one of the big resilience parts that I want to work on the Electrum part for. So there has been multiple different wallet backends out there who like they go unmaintained or they bit rot and people take down their servers. And so I'm working on Electrum specifically because it has such a strong like community and community service around it that I can expect it to maintain like and still be available. I mean, I had a Copay wallet back in the day, which required Bitcore as the backing solution, and without a backing server for it, it just stops working. And this is actually what killed off the casual wallet I was working on. I was using the Bitcore backend services, and it just couldn't do what I needed to do. And then I took a pause, and when I got back to and wanted to try again, the servers were no longer operational, and I could not get access to my wallet anymore. So
Yep.
never again that.
Same thing happened with the Yenim wallet. I think most people have never used it, but the Yenim wallet was the simplest wallet you could possibly imagine, and it was awesome. It was these guys in Japan made it, and I still have it on my phone, and it still runs, but it doesn't. The back end part of it doesn't work anymore for exactly the reasons Jonathan just said, which is sad, right? It'd be nice to have some old classic vintage wallets that still work just because they were made well. But yeah, and then the reason I bring that up is because recently some guy took the old code from the Yenim wallet and like updated it and published it again, and I was like, holy shit, this came back after like 5 years all of a sudden, or more than that, like 6-7 years. It reappeared in some other form. It's been pretty cool. Anybody else use the Yenim wallet? Am I the only one?
I installed it like all the way back in the day, but I think
it was like 7 years ago, right?
Yeah. But I think I used it for like 2 months or something, and then I left it aside.
Nice. Yeah. It was good. It was my favorite. I think they took the same approach that Celine is trying to do today, where you got like one like extremely simple, like everything. There's no extra buttons, levers, bells, or whistles. It just works. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think today a lot of the BCH wallets are kind of Celine included, I think, are converging on just using Fulcrum as backend, which is pretty awesome to see, because Fulcrum, in the olden days, this doesn't make sense, because the old Electrum X, and even before that Electrum server, was just, they were just not performant enough to act as a serious backend. But today Fulcrum is at the point where it has enough performance to compete with the best of the best centralized servers. So so it makes sense for the wallets to just say, why would I write something inferior myself instead of just using what exists? And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Also, but if you go back a couple of years, there are things you couldn't do with a Fulcrum server. It was very specifically designed to support the old Electron wallet and no other use cases. But thanks to Kaylin and a bunch of user suggestions back and forth, the current iteration of the Electrum Cache protocol is actually much broader than the Electrum wallet needs. And so it's available to be used for a lot more use cases, and it still stays performant.
This reminds me, the conversation we had, what was it, a week or two ago? Time flies, I don't know. But about a week ago on Callisti, like Callisti organized this discussion, right, where it was a handful of BTC developers and a handful of BCH developers, and had a conversation, and it was very carefully moderated to keep it nice and friendly. And it was like, for the vast majority of it, it was all like totally friendly, just technical discussion. But one of the things that super jumped out at me was like the reversal of roles, where BCH now has all this tooling, and they were like, man, I really wish we had Cache Script. I really wish we had, like Electrum Cache. They didn't say Electrum Cache, but they would have if they had known about it, because it's way better than what they have. And they already use Fulcrum, right? Like Fulcrum is the most performant indexer for the Electrum protocol. So Fulcrum is already used in BTC, but yeah, complete reversal of like just all the stuff is being built in BCH now, which is really surprising.
Yeah, I think this is a consequence. This is kind of a consequence of the focus, the community focus, right? Like the community focus actually matters in this case, because in BCH, like actual volume aside, we actually care about using it, and if the focus is to use it, then a lot of different very practical things, very practical concerns would just come up when you do that, and we would need to solve that. Versus BTC, like a lot of people talk about, oh yeah, it's a Lightning chain, blah blah blah. Blah. Well, Lightning is kind of a distraction, but mostly end of the day, the focus and the service is for number go up, and for that the audience is basically the exchanges, right? And the exchanges just care about, okay, you can deposit, you can withdraw, and that's about it. They don't really care about anything else, nor would they like sponsor any efforts to do that. So I think this is where we diverged. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if something's never used, if you don't exercise muscles, such as making transactions, then you don't use them and they fade away. Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up BTC. I just meant this is related to that previous discussion. It was just an interesting point where we've really got the tooling and the utility is building up. It's great. Great to see. What are you working on these days? You name.
Hey, yeah. So, for me, I'm personally trying to rally. Like we did a spaces like last week, to rally and
Right.
inspect and give feedback about the recent upcoming chips. And I see this week that there has been a lot of work done on the Begins chip. We have maintained a very cautious stance on that, because it is really late and things were very bare bones. But it seems like, well, we said that we did say that, well, that stance might change if there's like a huge avalanche of stuff coming in. Well, I don't know whether it qualifies as like a real avalanche of stuff that would get it past the line yet, but some people have certainly been trying. I'll need to evaluate that. That's yeah, that occupies a lot of time.
And again, a big shout out to Bitcoin Cash Altist, who, like, he's pretty fucking annoyed with us. I think it's pretty clear, right? For being so, I'm sure he sees it as like being gatekeeperish, right? But it's like, look, we're not gatekeeping anything, right? We're just saying our opinion, and our opinion is it's not ready, right? Like it's not obvious that it's ready. The chip isn't done, etc. Just saying like the uncomfortable truth, but just like before, with PMV3, this upgrade to the predecessor to what the upgrade we did for Cash Tokens, and then the Op Group, which was also a predecessor to Cash Tokens, and then finally Cash Tokens. Like, he puts in a lot of hours into bringing all that stuff out, getting it all published, getting it written down, putting it on paper, making sure that people can look at it, telling people like to put up or shut up. Like you said, you wanted to see evidence. Well, here's all the evidence. So come and look at it. And
Yeah.
he puts in a lot of hours on that. And then Uname does too. Uname here does a lot of that also. But yeah, big props to you guys, because a lot of the stuff that makes the chip process work is just communication.
And the other way I think the other way I see this is that, like, like some people might get annoyed as, yeah, this is such an important thing, why are you guys doing the gatekeeping about this, or whatever. Well, I mean, as you said, we're not really gatekeepers, but we are aware that whatever we say would be a bit, at least a little bit, influential. But if this gets in the end gets past the finishing line somehow and gets activated, I think we have something to be proud of, in that, it's not the case where, oh yeah, so we got through anyway, so why are you wasting everyone's time? No, like, maintaining the bar is important. And if the fact that we bitch about it so much means that, the bar is maintained, and in the future, there wouldn't be like a deterioration of things, so where everything can go through last minute, and then and then and then that gives rise to conflicts and instabilities, both technically and socially. Like I think that's a good goal to have in general. Like even if this gets through, I think generally like doing this is valuable.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you're working on that, and continue to keep the bar high. Make sure that we keep that stability. Like, yeah, man, things go back to some kind of ugly, competitive, last minute upgrade, contentious. Yeah, man, things can backslide really quickly.
Oh my god!
So
Like out of all the chains, I hope like BCH people especially understand that.
right? Yeah, but it's like without a king, without a corporation running the show, it takes effort, and it takes some coordination, and it's different. It's different when your boss that pays your salary tells you that we're doing an upgrade, and when some dude or dudette tells you we're doing an upgrade, right? It's different. Different thing. Dude, I don't have anything interesting to say. Like I've just been down in the weeds, like working on the stuff for BCH Bull and all the infrastructure that's out there for that. But yeah, we've also been talking and working on the native wallet thing, right? We don't really have something official to say, but I think we've said it several times unofficially. I'll just say it again, I guess, that the whole native wallet thing is something that's very important to us, and we are actually working on that in the background, and probably it'll be one of those things where people are like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense, until we publish it, and then the proof is there, and people actually get to use it and say, oh, this is great, or you guys wasted your time. But one way or another, we're going to work on this native wallet thing. I don't know. I'm super excited about it. We've been talking about it for years.
I mean, at the
Yeah.
at the first, how I imagine it will be that at the first when we publish, it will probably not be any grandma can pick it up, and it will be super great kind of thing. Like at the first point of publishing, I expect it to be mostly a other devs would pick it up and say, oh yeah, this thing is still rough around the edges, but it has potential, and I should join the effort, kind of thing. Like that will be a very sufficiently awesome outcome. I mean, we're a small company. I don't expect everything to be super polished at the first go, but yeah.
Right, because what we're making is not really the wallet. The wallet isn't the hard part of it. The wallet is the easy part of it. The hard part is the whole set of standards and underlying technology stack where you can use Bitcoin Cash network in a very easy, developer-friendly way, so that now people who are accustomed, because there's a million app shops out there who's like, yeah, we can make apps. That's what we do. We know how to make apps. But those shops do not have the expertise to do blockchain apps or Bitcoin Cash apps. But if you make it simple enough, they can. And that's the whole point of this, is making it so that the cost of entry, the bar to entry, is really low. And people who want to make apps that use permissionless money for the world, it's not a big deal. And they can just make apps that use it. And that's hard. Making things that are simple to use is hard, because it means you take on all the complexity. So that's where we're going.
Well, the complexity is the interesting part too, right? I mean, if a problem's not interesting, then who's gonna work with it? And so, like, we've been spending our times, like, the last couple of weeks talking about and looking at, like, architectural design and what kind of things changes when you build it from this perspective compared to before. And I think it's kind of interesting that, like, most people will think, like, yeah, so you're building a wallet, so you're going to have an app, and it's going to be a wallet, but it's going to have more functionalities. But It's actually slightly different that because there's a bunch of assumptions built into the idea of a wallet, right? So for example, when we eventually do release this, most of you probably expect that you can go to your existing wallet, press export and get something like an extended private key or some seed words, and then put that into our app and everything just works, right? Well, it might work in that direction, but it does not work in the other direction. Because once you have this native functionality that understands the actual underlying lock scripts and how to interact with these templates, then the state around your transactions become as important to your ability to interact on the blockchain as the actual keys become, right? So if you lose this state, you lose the equivalent of your key, so you lose your spendability. And so a backup from a smart contract-based wallet, a native wallet, will by necessity end up looking very different from it is today, and it can't be backwards compatible with existing wallets who are stateless.
And this is a really painful point. I want to restate that because probably not everybody or most people wouldn't understand exactly the implication of what you said. But with the current way a lot of wallets work on UTXO, you have a seed phrase, and from that seed phrase, plus maybe a little bit of other information, you can more or less reproduce the same thing anywhere. And that's not the case once you start to get into smart contracts and so forth, and participating in smart contracts, or like making pledges on helpme.cash or fundme.cash, or making pledges on or making any hedge contracts and so forth. Once you start doing all that stuff, the old way of tracking the state of your wallet doesn't work anymore. It's not sufficient. It's not good enough. It's too dumb. So then you have to have a new way of looking at things. You have to have a new way of understanding, what does it mean? What does a wallet even mean? What does it mean for me to have money in my wallet? Am I participating in these contracts? All that information has to now be part of your wallet. And that's a hard thing to do, because this is what makes, and it might sound dumb, right? Because it's like, wait, why do you need to store all that state? That's really dangerous and scary that now I have to store all the state. But the alternative is to let the blockchain store all that state, and let the blockchain store all the state of all the apps on it. And that's where you get Ethereum, and that's where you get global state and global contention, and you end up failing to scale. So this is a really hard problem to solve, because we have to balance these things of like user experience and ability to scale. If you let the blockchain handle all the state, your blockchain will absolutely not scale, and you will never reach global scale. It's a hard problem.
Well, I'll argue in theory, it's actually a relatively straightforward problem. I mean, you have state, you store state, and then you retrieve state, right? Just put it in a cloud or something. It's not that complicated. I mean, look at the BCH Bull app, right? You have your export your contract list, which allows you to do your mutual redemptions should the existing infrastructure go die for some reason. And that's the same thing, right? That's state around those contracts, and you can't use those contracts without that state. And so we already have implemented it there, and others have implemented it in other places. But to implement it, or rather to standardize around how to manage this state, is kind of the part that's needed, right? How do I go from one native wallet to another native wallet? How do I export from one and import into the other and make sure that they are compatible? How do I make it so that I can make an export one day, and 5 years later when I need it, I still understand how it works, or I can find the documentation for it and there is existing tooling that can handle it? And these things don't happen if you just build an ad hoc one-time implementation. If you do that, what's going to happen is you're going to make your backup, and then like some wallet provider is going to die and the wallet no longer exists, and you sit there with your backup and you can't use it. And the more complicated that backup is, the more important it is that it's properly standardized and documented.
And that backup is called Armory.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been
Oye,
interesting to
señorita,
dig
¿cómo
down
está hoy?
into all these things.
Muy bien, muy bien. Otro día en
What's
cielo,
up? What's
¿no?
up? What's up? What's up,
Otro
man?
día.
How you doing, Jeremy?
Otro día en cielo.
Oh my God, you're on the wrong podcast. Yeah, all those things Jonathan just said. Yeah, it's not like super magic. If you look at a lot of apps out there are doing all kinds of stuff in the background that you don't really think about. They're storing state, they're storing your save games, they're storing your documents, they're storing your settings. You don't even think about it, but all that stuff is being stored somewhere. And if you went somewhere else and like loaded your apps up and all of this stuff was not standardized and already implemented so that it was all talking to each other, you would load up your banking app and the whatever, it would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Or you would load up your whatever game you play and it would be like, no, you don't have any saved games. You're starting over from the beginning, right? We don't know who you are. So there's a lot of this stuff that is being stored in normal apps. It's true. It's just a normal thing, and that we're gonna have to figure out how to make that work too. And there's a related thing with people who are used to EVM and Ethereum. When you're opening up apps there and you like go to the or you like open up a new wallet, you use your seed phrase and you open it up in MetaMask fresh, like with no other context whatsoever. You open it up, you create a new wallet in Ethereum, I mean in MetaMask, and it does not know what you're participating in. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the background where it's looking up, oh, okay, so we know all these really standard contracts, and we're going to go check if this wallet is participating in any of those contracts, and then kind of backfill that information in for you. So wherever it is,
That
there's a lot
doesn't
of stuff
sound very
going on in the
scary.
background. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background that you don't necessarily know about, and that's the kind of thing that we have to figure out. We have to make this complexity all happen in the background, where the user doesn't have to think about it or worry about it, and it just works and it looks nice and it's easy to use. That's where we have to get to for UTXO also. Yeah, go for it, Jerry. You there? I think Jerry had his hand up, but I can't hear him. I can hear myself on his mic, but I can't hear him.
Yeah, I hear you kind of.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh shit, your mind.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, I hear you.
Oh, okay, yeah. It might have been my headphones or something like that, but yeah, I just wanted to quickly jump on because you guys are talking about the wallet stuff, and yeah, I actually built out a fairly preliminary demo of a Covenant capable wallets, which kind of like does this kind of things that you guys are talking about, right? It's just essentially loading up these contracts from CashScript and enabling that functionality. And yeah, like one of the things that I definitely noticed early on was, like with the current user flow of, just scanning a QR code and sending people's money, that essentially, just does not work for any sort of, like more complex Covenant setup. And, I think a more B2B approach in, like coming together and creating that kind of user flow would be good before pushing everything out to the retail side of things.
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's you've been looking into already, I think, right? The Cash Connect. So there's Wallet Connect, right? Which is really just like a kind of a bare bones communication setup. It's not really anything native. But if you've looked at the Cash Connect, which I think you have, right? Like that's getting into the really native, like, hey, we need to be able to communicate in the language of Bitcoin Cash. And once you get to that level, then you can start to think about, yeah, how do we standardize this? How do we communicate in a way that makes sense for any wallet and any application, so that they're all doing things in the same way, right? Like,
Yeah,
essentially,
you had to look at it. Yeah, because essentially right now there's a couple of these contracts where it requires multiple parties to participate in the signing. And, like if you just have one device, it's very hard to coordinate that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, like I was hoping the Cash Connect would have those functionalities and whatnot, but yeah, again, it's just something that needs to have like a little bit more research done and development done.
You might want to talk with Jason Dreisner. He's really into that multi-entity signing thing, and he's actually building these kind of toolings that's required to build this native wallet.
Yeah, it's funny. Talking with Jason is one of those things. Like, I don't know, anybody who's done building, like development or programming or whatever, and then you talk with somebody who's like a true senior developer. You're like, hey, I have this idea. And whatever idea it is you've had, they've thought like 4 levels beyond that. Like they're like 4 generations past whatever it is that you come up with. And that's what it is kind of with the multi-party signing stuff, right? With Jason, he's like, yeah, right, of course we got to do multi-party signing. In fact, there's this whole protocol built into libauth that nobody uses or is even aware of like not only having multi-parties participate in a wallet or in some kind of signing, but like there's this whole process of sending the data from party to party and then validating each data and then confirming and being able to place blame on anyone who is giving bad data to the process, and then everyone is aware. Like, yeah. So yeah, exactly what Jonathan said. Look at what Jason has been doing, or have a chat with him, and of course Jim is aware of that stuff too. But yeah, Jim is the guy who makes Cash Connect. But yeah, that's very cool that you started to make that wallet. What is it that made you want to start to make that wallet? I was very surprised to see you start making it, and it's very cool that you're starting to make it. What is it that got you to try that?
Yeah, so I actually got in touch with Roscoe when he was still writing his master's thesis for CashScript. And yeah, I just wanted to really just like implement it into something that, like other people can actually see in their hands, right? Because one of the things with all these covenants and CashScript and all these contracts is that you always require some sort of a web application to actually properly see it. And for me, like when I'm doing a lot of these meetups, it has to be like in-person interactions, right? I can't just whip out a laptop and show people and stuff like that. So yeah, initially it was really just like the initial working with the wallets, which I actually at the time was with Badger. Essentially, it was just to mint out more SLP tokens back in the day. And yeah, now that like there's more functionalities and whatnot, I'm just trying to pursue those.
Very cool. Are there any particular contracts that you're trying to make work in the wallet, or is it yeah, are there any?
Yeah, so right now it's just a couple of demo contracts like escrows, transfer with timeout and stuff like that. I definitely would love to like potentially integrate the AnyHedge contracts in there. But yeah, right now it's mostly just trying to find like any sort of like test pilots to just showcase and gain traction for the covenants outside of the whole like Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin Cash space. Because honestly, like I don't think many other chains are even looking at things like covenants right now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. This is part of the whole native wallet discussion, which is so in the past there were some people who thought, well, I don't know, maybe there's still people who think this, but I don't think this. But I know people who thought there's only ever going to be like 3, 4 smart contracts that are used at massive scale. And so you just build those into your wallet. But I never believed that, right? Like I assume that there's already a huge number of smart contracts out there on BCH, right? And for every wallet to have to implement every smart contract and know how to present it in a smart way is impossible. Like if you even assume there's going to be 10, 20, or 100 smart contracts that are used at scale, yeah, that's just impossible for every wallet to implement every one of those. So then that brings up the question of how do you present smart contracts in a general way that's still safe and easy for people to use? So yeah, it's an open problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, so like for me, like the approach I'm going about is, like first, trying to go about with the B2B level of things, where like the people that actually want to provide these kinds of services would collaborate to build out these user flow for the covenants, so that at the end of the day, the retail users can have something very akin to like a marketplace, where, like instead of, on your mobile phone, you're downloading applications. In this case, it would just be downloading these Covenant user flows.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what we're working on. That's the native wallet. You're on it, man. That's what we're talking about when we talk about native wallets is you got to have somebody that's on your team that their security, like the wallet is prioritizing your security, not anybody else's. And it's got to understand to some degree what's going on with all these apps and so forth. And what that ends up resulting in is, yeah, like you said, something like a contract store where you're like, hey, I want to be able to make AnyHedge contracts. I trust this template, which knows how to work with AnyHedge contracts. And then your wallet is like, okay, now we know how to do AnyHedge contracts. Sweet.
Yeah, and those templates also contains user information about what the template actually does, so that you can provide good user experience to users. Like you can tell them what role they have in this contract and what functions they can do and what those functions mean in a more user-friendly way. But even more importantly, those templates can also tell your wallet what state it must generate and track so that it can create the proper state in its state machine and keep all that around over time and not accidentally lose any state.
Yeah, one thing that I'm actually looking at right now is it's a very simple, like custodial contract where obviously like non-custodial solutions, right? But like I just keep on seeing, like cases after cases of multi-sig, exchanges using multi-sig and even their custodians getting hacked and whatnot. I think it was just last month in July where like this Indian exchange called Juarez X, they just got hacked. It's like 3 of their multi-sig keys got hacked and 1 of their custodial keys got hacked, right? So, like one of the things I was looking at was, yeah, I know, like how does a custodian's keys get hacked? But yeah, like one of the things I was looking at for the Covenants, it's very, very basic. It's just, providing that extra layer of security on top of, the current multi-sig setups, right? So that even if attackers were to gain access to those keys, it's not like they can just send it to whoever they want, right? It's all predefined in there.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the stuff that Jason talks about all the time because, right, he used to work at BitPay and he dealt with the real world of, hey, I have, $1 billion in this wallet and I'm sorry, but my key got compromised and someone sent out, $1 billion from my wallet. And it's like, that sucks. Right? Like that's all you can say. There's nothing you can do beyond that point. And so I think that's a significant part of why Jason focuses on things like vaults, right? Where you say, hey, someone has tried to send $1 billion out of our wallet, but luckily we're using a vault contract so that there is a 20-day period within which if we publish an invalidating contract, we can cancel that, right? So yeah, I think that's a big part of right, like what you were saying. A lot of that, the vaults that Jason talks about is that kind of thing, where the vault has behaviors that are immutable. They're fixed on the blockchain, and even if somebody hacks you and hacks your keys, you still have a chance to be like, hold up, I didn't actually do that, and fix things. Yeah, we're still in the infancy of what it means to have programmable money, right? Like a lot of this stuff
Yeah.
hasn't really been worked out. Like a multi-sig wallet, for anybody who doesn't know, multi-sig wallet means like I have a wallet with money in it, but in order to spend it, I need the approval of some number of participants in that wallet. So maybe the wallet has 4 participants and I need the signatures of at least 2 people or 3 or whatever it is you want to do, or all 4. But that's what a multi-sig wallet means. But even when you have a multi-sig wallet, like Jerry just said, if you have it compromised, yeah, okay, you're screwed now if it gets compromised. So if you have a smart contract, though, then you could say, yes, I need approval of 3 people in order to spend money from this contract. And additionally, once somebody tries to spend money, I now have 7 days to cancel that transaction because that was a fraudulent transaction or whatever, and then sort out what to actually do with the money. Yeah, and none of that is actually implemented in any wallet anywhere for any chain. So yeah, we're still in the infancy of what we really need to do with this stuff to make it user friendly.
Yeah, and multi-sig wallets are also the most generalized and most boring version of that technology. I mean, you can do a lot more with your wallet when it's based on the underlying lock scripts than just doing multi-sig, and you can build it around the use cases rather than building it around the technology. And I think that's where people actually pick it up and start using it for other than just, safekeeping money. I mean, you can do a ton of different things, like ranging from like functional peer-to-peer insurance to a lot of stuff. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see whatever comes growing out of the native contract world once we have tooling that allows people to actually build at low cost.
Mm. Yeah, like for example, with general protocols, we have some wallets, and those wallets to some degree depend on trust, because there's BCH in it, but is that BCH being spent for the purposes of general protocols, or is that being spent for somebody who goes out to dinner and is like fraudulently charging whatever, something like that? Like yeah, you can have wallets that have whatever rules you want on them, whatever rules you want. Like, as long as the CEO says it's okay, then it's okay. But if the CEO doesn't say it's okay, then you need 3 other people to approve it, or whatever it is. All those rules you want, whatever you want, you can put on there. And if there's time limits, you can put time limits. Yeah, there's so much. We really haven't even scratched the surface of programmable money. And investments, like right when it gets into investments, like what does it mean to make an investment in something? Currently, right, like you make an investment and that's only backed by some piece of paper somewhere and your ability to sue somebody and put somebody in jail, more or less, right? But once you get into programmable money, you can start to have more meaningful rules where an investor says, hey, I will invest this money under these conditions, and those conditions are enforced by a blockchain. That'll be crazy. It'll be fun.
Well, if you add some well-functioning oracles that can attest to outside work, you can start building decentralized organizations that do work and not just manage money.
I think one thing too is that like with the whole UTXO models, right? Like these covenants and whatnot are all very, very composable. So, like one thing that I haven't really looked at is, how do you actually chain up these contracts together in such a way that, like it makes sense for the end users, right? So, like you can definitely imagine, like one contract can just be like one layer of control. And depending on how that transaction gets spent, it can go to like a whole different host of, like different contracts with different rule sets of their own, right?
For sure. Like, for example, there's the old Mecenas contract, which is basically a recurring payments contract, where it's like, hey, I'm going to put $10,000 of BCH into this contract, and I'm going to pay you somebody who's doing some work for me on a monthly basis, or like Patreon, right? Like Patreon. I'm going to pay you because I really appreciate what you're doing and I want to support your work. I'm going to pay you on a monthly basis. And you could either do that payment in a BCH number, which is pretty straightforward and that exists, or you could say, I actually want to pay you in terms of US dollars or euros or rupees or whatever it is. And I want to pay you on that basis on a monthly. So in order to do that, you've got to now include either an oracle or like some kind of stabilization contract or whatever it is you want to do. Maybe you could use a stable coin. Yeah, there's so many options what you could do to make things work. And like you said, compose, right? Where you can have this contract that's paying out on a monthly basis, but not only paying out on a monthly basis, but using some kind of stabilization to keep the value of the contract.
So this is where I jump in and say that currently what people believe a wallet is actually a pretty dumb set of simple send and receive mechanics, which is pretty locked down in what it's capable of doing. But once you get to the native wallet, someone can make a template for a smart contracting system where you store all your money under one lock script, and this lock script authorizes a different contract to generate authorization tokens on your behalf, and you control the private key behind this separate other contract. Now, what you can do is that you can give out these authorization keys to third-party services together with metadata inside of their commitment that tells them under what conditions they may acquire money from your original pool, allowing you to set up recurring payments to multiple parties from the same pool of money, something that you can't do with a regular wallet or a regular multi-sig, because they have to segregate all the funds. So this is also one piece of research that I hope we get to demonstrate once we have functional native wallet. Being able to set up the equivalent of a pool-based but still authorized, where the user is fully in control, set up for both payments and recurring payments, denominated in whatever Oracle you choose on a basis. And yeah, I really look forward to that.
I want to rephrase that because I love this. Jonathan came up with this design a while back, and I really love it. So you put money into a smart contract, like your personal smart contract. And this smart contract is like, hey, anybody who has authorization can pull from this according to their permissions. And so you give Netflix your permission. You're like, hey, you have permission to take $10 worth of BCH out of this pool on a monthly basis, according to some strict rules. And Netflix is like, okay, cool, thanks. You now have a Netflix subscription because we can take this money and we can confirm that that money is sitting there and we can actually get it from you. And then not only that, but you can use that same pool to give, to your local electric utility or water utility or whatever. And they can all pull from that because you give them tokens that authorize them to pull from your pool. And so, yeah, now you have recurring payments without having some kind of complicated setup. You just put money in your budgeted, this is my payments pool, like my payments wallet. And a lot of people do that anyway, right? You separate your monthly budget into pieces, and you say, this is the amount that's set aside for that. Yeah, and you just put that there, and they can pull from it as they need it, as you gave them approval. And importantly, unlike a lot of things where they make it very easy to subscribe and then very difficult to unsubscribe. I don't know if you've ever tried to unsubscribe from something, but typically, like, apps make it really hard to unsubscribe, like an order of magnitude harder than it is to subscribe. But here it's like, hey, that's in my control, 100% in my control. I just hit cancel on the Netflix thing on my side, and they see, oh, he canceled his token. He's invalidated our spending token. Oh, okay, so his contract is over, right? So this is putting power back into your hands, which is the way it should be.
Yeah, you can apply the same logic to just like, like corporate laws and like, contract work where, things are evaluated on milestone basis. And, like the funds could just be released if the milestones are actually achieved and whatnot. And if there's any sort of disputes, like you can just assign some sort of arbiter in the middle.
Exactly. And then in the meantime, you don't have to leave the money with a lawyer, for example. Like that's what happens in a lot of cases with escrows, right? You're actually trusting this other third party to do the right thing, which is not always which doesn't always work out. So yeah, if you can trust the blockchain to be like, hey, here's the money and here's the rules, this is pretty much there's no way to break those rules. So
yeah, and quite honestly, on top of like finding the right custodian, if you're lucky enough to like have the custodian all in one jurisdiction, that's one thing. But if it's cross-jurisdictional, it's like, who are you going to trust as that middleman arbiter?
Exactly. Across jurisdictions, it starts to become like, hey, am I going to be able to put you in jail? I don't know. Am I going to be able to put you in jail? Right? That's like the real fundamental question. It boils down to that. Am I going to be able to sue you in the case that things don't go according to plan, that's like a terrible setup, right? It's an ugly
Yeah.
thing. You
So
don't want to
let's
be
just
depending
remove
on
all the
violence
middlemen.
anyway, right? You just want to have the agreement and have the agreement be followed. That's it. Sorry, Jonathan, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What were you saying?
Yeah, let's just remove all the middlemen, right? It's cool if you can find a custodian, but you don't have to have a custodian under the correct setup. So let's just build that setup and let people be sovereign without middlemen.
Yeah, and this gets in. Yeah, this gets into a whole nother discussion, right? About removing moats and making things service based. This is part of the whole general protocol's approach to things, which is like, hey, let's assume that we can't necessarily hold a monopoly on things, and we have to actually provide a great service in order for people to use our thing, to want to use it, as opposed to, hey, let's use regulations and rules to make it so that people can only use our service. That would be a terrible outcome, right? I mean, nice for profit, terrible for the big picture. So yeah, I like looking at this thing where you start to remove middlemen and start to replace them with services. And if you don't like the service, you don't have to use it. You can use somebody else or you can do it yourself. I love this kind of setup.
Yeah, and you also enable like peer-to-peer services and you enable crowdsourced services. So like take, for example, like I said earlier, insurance, right? That's something where you have a centralized party who gets to be adjudicator and decide what's what. But if you can build a service that is decentralized and based on the commons and everyone involved there, then suddenly you can get insurance that's not predatory, and you can get like, yeah, there's a lot of benefits you can get, and a lot of friction you can remove out of the system.
Right. It'll have its own problems as well, but having the option is something that I think is a really great goal. Where it's like, yeah, you can trust Geico or whoever it is that you trust for your insurance, but you also have the option to do things peer to peer. Like having those options not only gives you more options, which is good, but it also keeps those other services much more honest, which is the same story as money itself, right? Like just by existing, Bitcoin makes central banks and federal reserves and their equivalents have to at least have a little bit of a second thought about the policies that they make because there's an alternative.
I'll have to say that up until about 2017, 2018, the entirety of the like fiat world kind of scrambled to meet that threat, and have since been going year after year without producing any functional CBDCs in most part, because the threat is no longer there. Bitcoin even fails at that, in my opinion.
Well, we're going to make it succeed. It's okay. What's up, Jeremy? What have you been working on?
Also, Jeremy, these days you need to mute in order to speak. The icon is inverted.
Yeah, it's possible. It's very possible that you literally have to make sure you're muted in order to speak. I don't know. You'll just have to experiment.
All right, well, I do have to jump off and get back onto the transit, but yeah, I'd love to catch up with you guys later and talk more about the wallet side.
Yeah. Join us in the native wallet discussion. This is the stuff that we're in love with, and it's very important to us. So we'd love to talk about it. It's very cool that you're already working on it.
Will do, will do. All right, stay in touch. See you guys.
Take care, Jerry.
Take care.
Can you guys hear me?
Hey, Bruno.
So before Jeremy jumps in about the different jurisdiction thing, I remember reading a while ago, back in the maritime days, like different countries doing commerce with one another via the water. And two reasons: because people in different jurisdictions didn't break the rules as often. One reason is because mutual benefit, of course, and the other reason was fear of ostracism. So if you didn't follow the rules, you would get ostracized by everyone, and you wouldn't be able to make deals with anybody. So
Yeah,
you would be out.
that's the whole libertarian. So even if you don't follow libertarian philosophy or whatever, if you end up if you're working in a permissionless system where you have the choice to do all kinds of things, and you have the choice to work with different partners as opposed to being forced to use a certain one, trust becomes even more important than it is today, right? Exactly like you're saying. Actually, wait a minute. Code Beatrix. Can you come up? I think this is the guy who's working on the library that was pulled from the Yinum stuff that I was talking about earlier. Is it? Let me see if I can invite him. I think this is the same guy. Hey, Code Beatrix, can you give me a thumbs up or something if you're the guy who pulled the code from Yinum and has been working with that? I think this is him.
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we heard you now. What's up?
Okay, all right. Before I was on my laptop, and even though they added speaking on your laptop, it never seems to work for me. So you always have to, do it with the mobile, which is kind of a pain. That's what it is. What it is.
Welcome, welcome. What have you been up to these days?
Well, just this morning, I was working on a proposal for this OpCat bounty thing that
No way.
Darkware have put out. $1 million that they're going to, I don't know, at least consider. I don't know that they guarantee they're going to give away the whole million, but that they're going to consider giving away to people who want to do research into OpCat or whatever. And so that's now, of course, the trending thing that the BTC guys are all talking about that. And I saw that and I thought, well, this is kind of a good opportunity for us. Obviously, BCH already has OpCat. We already have all blah, blah, blah. So I have written up, I'm about 70% of the way through the proposal, but I'll get it done, maybe tomorrow, something like that. And submit my proposal, which is going to be called Feasibility Analysis of OpCat Activation. And it's a genuine proposal following rules and guidelines, what have you, which is that I would do a full breakdown of the history of successful and unsuccessful upgrades on Bitcoin and show, what got things through and what didn't and what was involved in the different things, some of the different organizations that obviously roadblock things, some of the economic incentives, some of the psychology of the people that were trying to get upgrades through and then failed, all that stuff, which is the actual reality of how, whether they would or would not be able to get OpCat through. But it's kind of a no-lose situation as I see it, because I can write a submit it very genuinely, respectfully, a day or two, and then they will either be interested, in which case, we've opened the dialogue there, maybe they fund us, maybe we get some money, whatever. Or if they're not, then that's fine too, because we can just publish this proposal, which I will do, submit to them and publish it publicly. And then whenever anybody's saying, oh, life is not working, life of me, blah, 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 like, what are you doing, you guys? Then we'll just have that forever to be able to be like, oh, look, here we go.
You're cutting out pretty badly, at least as I heard here.
So that's why you're failing. And obviously, people can keep stacking that up.
Hold on. Jeremy, hold up. We can barely hear you. I think it's on this end.
Something proactive for BTAs like Celine and anything else, but I'm doing those as well, obviously. But my thought is that the museum community is in such a great place at the moment that we can afford to spend a little bit of this time on the proactive PR like that, where we just find ways to show very high quality work and being genuinely engaged with stuff that we should be taken seriously. And I think that has a lot of ripple effects, even if we don't initially notice it. So that's what I've been working on today.
Okay, so I was listening very carefully, and I think we might be able to enhance that after the fact. But Jeremy, I don't know if you can hear me, but we could barely hear you just now. But yeah, I think I
Oh,
got.
okay. What about now?
Oh, hey, he's back. There, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. My headphones obviously connected halfway through. Should I summarize and say it again?
Yeah, give us like the TLDR of what you were saying, because I think we can get it like when we go back and process it. But yeah, like give us a TLDR of what you were saying.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, the TLDR is the Starkware offering $1 million for OPCAT proposals on BTC for people to research that. Now, the BCH community has A, already shipped OPCAT, and B, already has a clear view of all the things that are involved with getting an upgrade through on BTC. So I'm going to submit a genuine proposal, which I'm about 70% of the way through, offering to do an analysis and a breakdown of all of the historical upgrades, as well as the current proposals that have either succeeded or failed, and show why each one is in which category and what they would genuinely need to do to get their upgrade through.
It's like the ultimate meta proposal. Yeah.
Well, because I figure if we've done that, then it will be a huge win for us, because I submit the proposal. Either they're interested in the proposal, in which case we can have a genuine discussion about it, which would be great. Or if they're not interested in the proposal, at the very least, having made the proposal is going to create some cognitive dissonance and help them get to the truth faster. But also, I will then publish the proposal once I've finished it.
Exactly.
And then we can refer back to it. So then when in 6 months it's like, oh, this OPCAT, it's not working, blah, blah, blah. Then we can post and say, look, here we go. We offered to explain it all to you. You didn't listen then. Do you want to listen now? And as long as you just keep doing that, eventually the public sentiment changes, because it's like, these guys have an answer. Why aren't you listening to it?
Perfect. Yeah. Putting it out there and then having very public proof of like, well, here it is where I explained it to you. Right there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Worst case.
So that's a small thing.
Worst case,
yeah.
You get $1 million and then you reinvest it in whatever you want to do.
Well, that's right. It'll be interesting. We'll see if they go for it. If they actually funded it, it would be super interesting too, because I would love to spend some time working on it. Obviously, it's not going to be my main thing. I'll try and budget it as maybe like a 1 day a week project for 6 months, 12 months, something like that. But I'll be delivering along the way, and they will get very good value out of it. There's nobody else, certainly not in the BTC community, that is better positioned to do something like this. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
Therapy. Go pay a therapist to help you realize all the things that you're doing wrong and need to do yourself to sort things out. Right?
Yeah, it is kind of like that, but we'll see. I mean, obviously that this is just something I'm doing for a day or two. It's really not my current focus. Other than that, I have been working on Celine. We haven't got an August release out yet, but the September release will be fairly comprehensive as a result. We've got some good stuff in the pipeline there. Obviously, the last release we did had the stats module in it, and then the next one that's coming up is going to have significantly expanded, not the stats thing, but more things in that vein. That explore tab, we've got a lot of ideas for stuff that we can put in there. And so we're just creating, again, just more some sort of MVP stuff, nothing that is going to like blow everyone's mind, but it's just expanding the scope of that and really starting to show the way for, you know, how good consumer wallets can become, certainly in BCH or even in crypto over the next few years. So you can look forward to that sometime in September.
Very nice. Very nice. Are you guys actually working on, I have to assume you're working with Electrum Cash, the thing that we were talking about at the very beginning of this space, or are you using ChainGraph, or what is it that you're using as a intermediary between the network and the app?
Well, yeah, we've got LibAuth, and then we also have the Electrum, I think it's called Electrum Cash, right? That library for broadcasting. I think we use Electrum Cash or
Right.
whatever the
that's
the one that Jonathan wrote a while ago.
Yeah. We had a pretty long discussion about the upgrades Jonathan's doing for that one, which the nice point of it is, right? Like every upgrade you do on some low level infrastructure upgrades the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, it'll flow through to us. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that the community should think about, because that operates at every level, right? It's not just the technical level, it's also like information. You know, everybody that we onboard exponentially improves the BCH onboarding outreach to further people, right? So if we're doing a good job of onboarding people just P2P, here's some bits of blah, 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 then that then spreads, right? And it's the same with, you know, like app designs or ideas, anything that you can contribute to the BCH community will then snowball on itself by spreading around to everyone else. And we're seeing increasingly the difference between the BCH community and other cryptocurrency communities, because the standard is now building on itself in terms of how educated and informative and confident the BCH community is relative to coins that are just, you know, shilling the price, or that are serious, like the Ethereum community. There's a lot of serious people there, but you can still see in sort of different interactions that the ETH people kind of come off second best if they start arguing or debating with BCH people, because we have that internal rising level of education and information. It's really great to see.
Yeah, network effect is everything with money. So building it up, every single thing adds to it.
Can I jump in real quick about this?
Hey, what's up, Bruno? Yeah, go ahead.
So right now, I don't know if you're following, but there is a big trending topic, which is the fight between Elon Musk and the Brazilian justice Alexandre de Moraes. Alexandre de Moraes has frozen Starlink's funds in Brazil in retaliation for him having refused to censor some political adversaries of Alexandre de Moraes, right? So all the BTC guys are jumping on this opportunity to shield Bitcoin, like, if you were using Bitcoin, this justice wouldn't be able to freeze your funds and blah, blah, blah. So that's a huge trending topic right now. And I don't know, the content creators in the Bitcoin Cash community should take advantage of that as well.
That's a good point, because I saw people talking about this with regards to Nostr as well, too, with the Telegram stuff and with the Twitter stuff. Like, it's all a bit interrelated, which is, okay, censorship is coming for us all, blah, blah, blah. They're going to shut down your communication channels, whether it's, money or information, either way. And I think that's something that I would like the BCH community to get into. And I posted in, I think, the Builders Telegram group about my plan for attacking that issue, which has been an issue that I've been aware of for a long time, and I think different parts of the community have been, but we've just been too busy fighting other battles, right? We've got one thing at a time. But I think over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll maybe start to be in a better space to fight some of those battles. And with Nostr specifically, I'll look into it, but my idea is if we can just build it directly into Selene, so that just your wallet is already providing your cryptographic keys and stuff like that, well, it could also just jump you onto Nostr immediately, and then you could talk to any other Selene user. So then we now would have like yet another alternative to Telegram and Twitter, and so forth, just inbuilt there. And obviously, if other BCH wallets also did the same, it would be really cool that we could have a community coordination going on there. And we have to be aware that we don't, like, a lot of the Nostr stuff is run by BTC guys, so we'll have to be taking on a big project that we'll have to maintain all our own forks of any needed infrastructure and yada yada. But that could be super valuable, I think, especially if we did it by integrating it into wallets, so that we would already have some community network effect rather than starting completely from scratch.
I'd try it.
Yeah, like for example, right now, VPN are like huge in word search, like all-time highs in Brazil, because this justice is threatening to take X or Twitter down in Brazil, and people are like, "Oh, use VPN, we use VPN." So it's all-time high in word search, or I don't know how to call it. And maybe we can get like self-custody in the trading topics over this, Elon Musk and Alexandre de Moraes fights.
Everything builds on everything. Yeah, it's a someone problem, right? Like, get out there and make that conversation happen. It's not going to happen automatically, so go for it if you're in a good position to do it. Otherwise, we gotta keep working on building. Well, everybody keeps working on their own thing. That's how decentralized ecosystem works. But yeah, we keep building on what's going to work for ourselves and what's going to earn revenue or make sense or help us. And then eventually we'll get to the point that kind of stuff starts to be available. But yeah, if there's somebody that thinks that's important, build it today, make it work. Start having that conversation today. That's like I always say with local adoption stuff, right? That is hard. It's a really hard thing. Local adoption is like the holy grail. It's a very hard thing to do, and you wouldn't necessarily pick that as the most obvious thing to do. But there's people who are working on it and making it work, making it happen. So it just takes dedication and ownership.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to say is the president of El Salvador have just said that Bitcoin is not being as adopted as he wanted to. And
surprise.
So this is the link. Oh my God, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so Elon Musk is being, picked up by this justice here in Brazil. I'm gonna censor X. I'm gonna freeze Starlink funds. Blah blah blah. And Saifedean is saying, "Oh, you should use Bitcoin because it's self-custody." Blah blah blah. But then, like, you can reply like, "Oh yeah, but it's not working out for El Salvador." And then you link to the Bukele's tweet. Like, do some connections like this so people hopefully come to Bitcoin Cash instead of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That sounds like a very, very difficult battle because people don't believe Saifedean because he makes sense. They believe him because it makes him feel good. That's why they believe him. So rational arguments may not cut it. You just gotta do better and make people want to use your stuff. Use whatever it is that you're offering because it works better and does better. You just got to build up your network effect that way. Yeah, people aren't listening to Saifedean because he makes sense. Because anybody who reads him who actually knows what they're talking about and knows that it's nonsense. So yeah, and that's a tough battle.
All right, we're almost 1.5 hours
Oh,
in,
wow,
and
yeah.
I'm going to need to leave relatively soon.
Yeah, let's go ahead and cut it. Yeah, it's been good. We had a chat about a bunch of random things. I had a good time. Did you have anything you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
No, it's been great.
All right. Jeremy, anything you wanted to throw out there before we wrap up?
Yeah, hit up my fundme.cash campaign and send me some stats.
Wait, what is it?
We've been.
I didn't know about that. What is it?
It's pinned on my Twitter campaign. So we do the flip starters for every 10 episodes, funding to do the next 10, and so this one we've got around to. We're gonna switch over to FundMe and try and do that, where we've got like 52% funded so far. I was also going to talk about it on the next episode, which will be tomorrow. I'll announce it in about half an hour. I'm going to be talking to Romit from Zapit, get the latest updates on what they've got going on there, and also just a sneak preview, which is that we're going to be doing the listener survey as well for the show for this year. Once again, we compare every year on year how the community is feeling. So you can check that out if you listen to this next episode, because I only talk about it on the show so that only listeners know about it. But this will be a sneaky little preview about that. Well, I don't want it to. I don't want to make it everyone.
Yeah, that's great. No, I didn't know about that. Okay, yeah, good deal. I'll go check that out on fundme.cash, right? That's where you're running it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And for people who are listening, fundme.cash is a smart contract, more or less, you can say smart contract replacement of Flipstarter. So Flipstarter doesn't actually use smart contracts, and it's hard to use. So fundme.cash is one person's attempt to replace Flipstarter with something that uses smart contracts and works in a better way. So yeah, go check it out. If you go there, then you should be able to see Jeremy's the Bitcoin Cash podcast campaign on there. I'm gonna go check it out now too. All right, it was good to talk to you guys. Thanks a lot for joining us, Bruno, and I hope I can also get a chance to talk with Code Beatrix. I swear, like, I couldn't get him to come up here, but I swear that's the guy who's working on the stuff that was extracted from Yinum. So I'd love to hear more about that and like where that came from and what he's working on and how he's doing it. So maybe another time you could join us and we can have a chat about that. All right, take care, everybody. It's been very good to talk with you. We'll see you again on episode 34 coming up soon. Take care.